Do you find yourself growing in life and maybe outgrowing certain people? Today's episode is about letting people go, and it's not the conversation that you think it's going to be. How are you doing today, Kat?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Our last episode, we were talking about feeling good enough, and we kind of got to the end and we were talking, and there was this need I found to address what happens when certain people in your life really aren't fitting anymore. And it could be just different sets of beliefs, but it can also be when people just treat you badly.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talk about a lot is that once you get clear on your purpose and you know who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world, those are our first two layers. The third layer is all about the people in your life, because
Mm-hmm.
we're here to, exist with people, to make friends, to have, experiences. It's said that, an experience that you share with somebody else is way more valuable in your brain than just having it on your own. And when it comes to that, I think a big part of our people, our clientele, they feel that kind of worried about, do I have to break up with, my mom? Do I have to let,
Yeah.
these things go? And I think we need to kind of have a conversation around this, because it's not what you think it is. It never is. But I think we make up a big fear in our head about changing and what that means for the other people in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And we do need people and we need community. In fact, I think studies show that loneliness is an epidemic and that people who have good friends around them actually live longer. But if anybody listening has worked on themselves, or you're just starting this personal development journey, self improvement journey, where you start to learn how to prioritize yourself and your needs. You start to learn how to set boundaries. You start to, go after the things you really want in life. It is extremely common for people on this journey to actually lose people along the way. And one thing that Chris Harder says, who is the host of For the Love of Money podcast, is he says, you are never leaving anyone behind. They are always welcome to join you on the journey.
Oh, I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. So my message of screw everybody and just walk your path isn't going to lie. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But
I
that is
guess
really, really good.
yeah. Well, because the more you improve, right, the more that you get confident in yourself, it changes relationships, right? What you decide to allow, again, I mentioned learning how to set boundaries, all of these things. Everybody that's been in your life a long time is used to you being a certain way. So if you're like always saying yes to people, or you're a pushover, or you're like super duper nice, or like, oh, Andrew will definitely do that for me. And all of a sudden you start being like, sorry, I can't right now. I've allocated this hour to working on my business, or you can't speak to me that way, or whatever it is where you kind of set a boundary in your life. Everyone who is used to treating you a certain way, or used to you being a certain way, you will immediately notice who pushes back up against those boundaries, the people who don't like the real new you, and it will become very apparent. And sometimes it's sort of sad to realize who wants you to remain small, who wants to kind of keep you in your place and prevent your growth. Because if you grow, what does that mean about them and their journey? Right? This can be a hard part of the process.
It can be. And that's why having a community of other people that are doing it is so valuable. And that's what we're building here. And I agree. I think when you start to grow, people around you are going to feel threatened, because if you can do it, what does that say about them not doing it? And that might not be their path, but that is usually the internalization that we all have. And it
Right.
comes back to feeling good enough. And I would say too, yeah, there are going to be people that really want to hold you back in your growth, not because of what it means for you, but because of what it means for them.
Right.
If you can go out and lose 50 pounds and look like, the exact way that you want to be, whatever that is, other people around you are going to try to feed you cake to keep you in line. And it's not a conscious thing. It's just
Yeah.
they don't want change. I mean, it's kind of funny that we all have this fear of change in one sense, yet we all crave it all the time. It's like controlled change, and they're not the ones that are able to control that change inside of you, and that's kind of how they do it. And I've gone through this multiple times in my life. I have
Yeah.
had, when I lost weight, I had people tell me you're too thin, and it was
Yes.
just like, I was actually like, my BMI was just under 25 at that point. It was like
Yeah.
I was quote unquote healthy by that number standard.
Yeah.
But it's really funny how, like, they would rather criticize you
Right.
than do something for yourself. They kind of want your balloon to get pulled back into the crowd, not float up to the
Right.
next level.
And I actually just got that recently when I was explaining, to somebody how you and I have really restructured our diet, how we lost a lot of weight, how we feel so much better, on this sort of like nutrition journey. And the response was just sort of negative, like, well, what do you eat then? Like basically saying, like, well, that doesn't sound like enjoyable at all. That sounds terrible. And for us, it's just been like we're fine with it, like we're happy and we feel better. But again, it's not really about me. Any response like that is about the person. And so where this gets hard on the journey, it's usually with the people that have known you the longest. It's with, your junior high friend that you've had all the way through college, that was in your wedding, who's kind of mean to you, but you guys have been friends for so long and they know everything about you. And so you just kind of like hang on to this friend every time, even though every time you talk to them on the phone or text, it always makes you feel bad or negative, or they can't be happy for you and your accomplishments or whatever. Those are the hardest people to let go of because you have all this time invested into them, right?
Right. And I think that's the investment fallacy right there, right? The sunk
Right.
cost fallacy is like,
Right.
I've been friends with them so long, I can't possibly be without them. We're not saying you have to be. We're saying you have to be you and grow into this version of you that is beautiful and expanded and conscious of who they want to be. And that person might not be. They may never get there, and that's okay. And you just don't necessarily go to that person in the same ways, because if you keep going back to that person, look, you only have so much space in your life. And if you keep going to the people that make you feel bad, you're never making room for the people that are going to make you feel good. And
Right.
that is a really big difference that is kind of hard to get until you go through it. But once you go through it, you start to see, wow, I have this. I'm just amazed at, for myself, the amount of supportive people I have in my community that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have 5 years ago. It just didn't
Mm-hmm.
exist. It was very um, hard to be in, when, as a person who really wanted to shed certain things and grow. And it's when you allow yourself to make that bit of space,
Right.
like, kind of go somewhere new, do that thing that kind of is nudging at you right now. You're like, I
Right.
should really go to this new bookstore or this rock shop, or I don't know what other people do. I go to bookstores and rock shops. So, but,
What you
go,
do? Thrift
that's what
stores.
we do. And, and thrift stores, my bad. And yeah. And when we go to those things, you have to make some space for the new things that come into your life.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to change. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you can't go do everything that you've always done and expect a different result. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
One thing that makes these changes happen is what we call you raise your vibration. And if you've never heard that term before, the quick summary of it is that the world is made up of energy, right? And we are all operating on frequencies. And if you are um, doing a lot of self improvement, work on yourself, sending out good in the world, and all these different things, you're going to attract good in the world, right? So people call it karma, works both ways, right? The same thing. If you are, very negative, it's sort of like how if you like stub your toe the first thing in the morning, you're like, this is a no good, rotten day. You're on the no good, rotten day frequency. And so you might notice on the no good, rotten day that lots more things happen. You get a flat tire. This happens. So, uh, there are a lot of things you can do to change your vibration. But what we're saying is the higher your vibration goes, it's not like you necessarily have to like call up someone and say like, we're breaking up, but you will start the differences between you and people on different vibrations will become more and more apparent. And sometimes they will take themselves out of the equation. And although it is sad and some losses are much more difficult than others, what we want to share on the other side of this journey is that when that happens, everybody at your vibration starts to be attracted to you. Then you go to like a conference and then you meet the nicest person and then somebody else, and it's just like this whole thing and you attract what you are. I've had many friends. So I'm 37. So I have friends who are close to my age, not married yet. And one of them in particular was with someone for 10 years, just kind of like waiting to do the whole like family kid thing. And like it never happened. And finally she got like fed up with it and left. It was definitely like that sunk cost fallacy. It was like, well, I've literally had a decade of my life with this person. Once she broke up with him, felt her sad, started like going to boxing classes and doing all this stuff. She raised her frequency and her feeling about herself. And then she met like the nicest guy ever who was so good to her. And I think they've been together for a few years now too, but it was like night and day. Right. And so a lot of people sort of hang on because of that fallacy to friends and maybe family members and just people that don't serve them and don't help them on their journey. But there are so many examples of people sort of rising up, and then you meet your tribe.
That's really well said. If you're listening there and you're kind of going, because I remember the first time the raising your vibration kind of conversation came to me, and I really didn't get it because I had two emotions, good and bad, as I've joked before on this podcast, but it's actually very true. For anybody that's out there and is going like, I don't understand that, try this. I'm guessing that you might be around some pretty negative people, and in turn, you're going to be negative yourself because you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's just the way, there's a lot of studies to prove that. If you go to that group and everybody is complaining about the economy or the weather or something else that they can't fix, but they just need to have something to complain about, whatever's on the news that day, and you turn to them and say, you come at it with a more positive attitude and say, how would you change it? You are going to find very quickly that those people disappear.
Yeah.
It's because they don't have an answer. They don't want to solve it. They just want to be negative. And that negative vibration just keeps kind of perpetuating a negative vibration. And when you kind of rise above it and be like, I'm going to be more problem solution based, not just ruminating on all the bad stuff. You come at this and you go, how would you change it? They've never thought about changing it. They just want to be able to complain. And you that's what we mean by raising your vibration is just, you can look at it in a bunch of different ways, but that is one way that when you do that, that is how people start to distance themselves from you because suddenly you're not talking the same language that you've always spoken with them. You are solution based. You are happier. You are doing these things that maybe feel weird inside of them, and it just doesn't resonate. And we've heard that term before, like, that doesn't resonate with me. That doesn't feel good. We have just a large vocabulary that addresses this feeling that we can't see, but we definitely know. So when you start talking with people that are around you and you think, like, oh, like kids these days, and it's like, yeah, how can we help the kids these days? And they just kind of like, they look at you like a deer in the headlights and they go, well, it's the economy. And you're like, well, how would you fix the economy?
Yeah.
Like it's just those people and you will start to naturally distance themselves. And it's not anything you have to do. You don't have to have the talk with them by any means. It's just kind of going like, look, I'm really, trying to make the world a better place. I'm trying to get around positive, like-minded people. And they can switch at any point. And some do, some don't. That's just part of it. Not everybody's meant to stay in your life forever. That's the other thing. I think we really do try to cling to the familiar, whether it's good for us or not.
Yeah, some people are meant to come into your life for just a season. Some people are meant to come in your life to teach you a lesson. Some people are meant to be in your life so you can create something amazing together, but not every single person in your life is meant to be a part of it forever.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you have control over is yourself, how you treat others, how you take care of yourself, how you learn, how you grow. You can't make anyone want to stay in your life and you can't make anyone want to go. But I do know that the more that you work on yourself, the more you raise your vibration and the truer you are to your own authentic self, the more you will attract like-minded people, the more likely you are to find your tribe. It's by clinging to the people that are not good for us. It's by trying to force somebody to be your friend or to stick with you, by trying to force someone to stay, that it doesn't feel right, that it's not going to work out for you, because we cannot control other people's journeys. Only they can. So all you can do is the best for you.
Ooh, that was really good. I like that.
Thanks.
It's really well said. I think something that I touched on, and I just want to go back into it a little bit, is the five people you spend the most time with, you're an amalgam of them. And likewise and likewise. So as a dad growing up, I was very mindful of this with my kids because, not everybody is aligned with the same values and stuff like that. So I would suggest, and this is a hard one, but to take a look at the five people you spend most of your time with and think about the things you really like about them. You don't need to think about the bad things, but just think about the things that you truly love about these people and how you would like to have more of that in your life. And you probably will find the more you focus on those good things in those people, you bring them out. And if you have that friend or person in your life where you're like, I really don't know why that person's there, because I think we all have one or two of those in our lives as time goes on. Then I would say to you, there's probably a lesson that you're meant to learn from this person. And if you're struggling to kind of look at this and go, I have no clue what I can get from my boss who's just a jerk and is mean to me and everything else, that person might be in your life to serve as contrast to all the other good things in your life. So I just wanted to kind of communicate that because this awareness, this kind of awakening to the people around you and stuff, we so often don't question anything that we're going through. We're just kind of going through our routine. And the reality is, it's only when you wake up from the routine and go, I can change any part of this at any time if I want to. It's a choice. But we
Yeah.
get kind of in the trenches of doing things, and we don't recognize that this is just an option. It's an option for me to stay at this job with this boss I don't like. It's
Yeah.
an option for me to how I choose to see this boss. There are dynamics at play inside of you, and you get to choose how you view all these people. And Catherine's nailed it though with raising your vibration. The more you do that, the easier it gets. Remember, nobody can make you feel a certain way without your permission. So when your boss, because I think this is the one that this one's coming up for
Yeah.
me for whatever
It's like, I
reason.
can't get rid of this person.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can, but
You
let's say
can,
you're
but it might not be an immediate thing you can fix like tomorrow.
exactly. So maybe you take this person and you see them differently.
Yeah.
See them as somebody see them as a child, and think of them, what could have been done to them as a child that would make them this kind of like really hard person to be around and whatnot. Or you can, and if that one doesn't work, you can kill them with kindness. And it really does work really well when they're like, you didn't do this. Oh, I didn't. Okay. Sorry. I will get back to doing that and I will do this. And, just don't let them dim your light. Stay
Yeah.
positive. That's the
One,
one thing with,
go ahead.
that's the one thing with negative people. They don't know how to be around positive people. They run for the hills most of the time.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I love how you said, oh, maybe this person's here for a contrast. So I said, like, sometimes people are in your life for a season or to teach you a lesson. Like, a lot of times in my head, I'm like, wow, thank you, universe, for this lesson in patience you're giving me right now. This is really going to help me grow. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always the funnest lesson to learn,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It does kind of help. I saw somebody have on a T-shirt, it's like, "Thank you, universe, for showing me exactly who I didn't want to be like."
Ooh.
It's good. You're not, if you
Yeah.
had everybody that was you, you would be bored. You need the contrast of these people
Yeah.
around you, but you don't need to let what they're selling. You don't have to buy what they're selling.
Yeah.
You're working with us, or you're just listening to the podcast and you're wondering about all this stuff. And the next obvious question to me is, how do I start? How do I
Hmm.
start to be me? And how does this letting people go thing work?
Mm.
I would say that the first thing is to just decide on who you want to be. Like this,
Right.
there's a reason why this is the third layer, not the first two when we work on our framework with you. It's because you need to know what your purpose is and then how you want to be. And if you want to be that kind of that boss that we just talked about, that's hard on everybody and angry and everything else, if that's actually how you want to be, well, that's your choice. You just know you're probably going to attract more of that. If
Yeah.
you're wanting something different, that's why you choose that. And then we'll always tell you, you come back to who you want to be, and you're not going to get it right all 100% of the time. You might not even get it right 50% of the time in the beginning. It's a gradual process.
Right.
But then suddenly you look back on yourself and you go, wow, there's a lot of people in my life that aren't here anymore. And I'm doing a lot better as well. And maybe those things are correlated. And maybe it's just happenstance, but I really know it's definitely not accidental.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're new to the show and you keep hearing us refer to layers, we do have an episode called The Layers of Life. That is the framework that we develop to help our coaching clients. And if you think of the layers of life like a big target sign, we say the core of the target sign is your soul, right? Your spirit, your essence. That is you. That's who you really are, your real preferences, your real dreams and goals for this life. And then as you go out onto the different layers of the target, you'll have different things like, your health, your family, out to your career, out to your home, possessions, all these different things, right? And so we encourage people to make decisions from the inside out, make decisions from the core of who you are. And we believe and we teach that in order to be happy, you must live authentically. You must live a life in true alignment with who you really are. And this is part of the process. Andrew keeps referring to the third layer because the third layer of the target is your family, friends, and community. It's everybody that you surround yourself with. And when you start to live your life from the inside out, make all of your decisions that way, it is possible that people in your community, friend group, family, that layer might change its shape and form as you grow and as new lessons come about. And if you're approaching that process, or you feel that process starting, or you're getting like maybe you got a promotion and you're getting kind of snide comments from family members like, oh, like who's too good for us now, and things like that, just know that this is a part of the process and you're not doing anything wrong. Any negative comments someone makes to you or about you is about them, their own journey and their own insecurities. But the only life, like I said, that you have control over is yours. And it's best to live it authentically if you want a chance at a life that is fulfilling. So we do use this framework in coaching, and we do walk people through it to work with them to understand what their purpose is in this life. And we do walk them through each of the layers during this coaching process. So if you want information on that, you can shoot us an email at hello@5yearyou. But I just wanted to provide some context just in case anyone new was coming in and hearing us talk about the third layer and they're like, what layer?
What
you
layer?
know?
Yeah, fair enough. I always forget that new listeners might not know this. So thank you for that. And yeah, if you're wanting to work with us, we have a 5-week accelerator where we take you through each of the layers of life. And it's 2-on-1 coaching. It's both Kat and I working with you. And you can sign up for an intro call with us to see if it's a right fit. It's no obligation. It's just getting to know each other. And you just go to 5yearyou.com and there's a button right there. Or you can, like Kat said, send us an email at hello@5yearyou.com. And we would love to work with you if this is what you're being called to work on next in your life. It's an honor for us. This is our life purpose. And
be fun to meet you. So say hi if you want to.
Yeah. Well, Kat, I think we got to get to, I know we're doing the book thing, and I know it's right now we are kind of going through, we mentioned last episode that, we're going through several books. What would you say is the most impactful book you've read this year? Like when I say that, what's the first one that comes to mind?
Actually, the first one that came to mind was the first book I read this year, and that was Atomic Habits. In fact, I think there are people who read it at the beginning of every year as a way to sort of like reset. So I was actually thinking about rereading it in January.
Oh, well, that's good. I like that. I love that book. That is such a good book. Such a great book. Cool. For me, the book that I think, and I'm not even done it yet, but I've read it before, and I read it years ago, and you had it in your library, so I borrowed it. It's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
I finished that one too. Mm-hmm.
It's such a good story, and there's very few personal development books that have just a great story. And the story is one thing, but the author's story of getting that book out there and everything is even him walking the walk and like talking the talk as he had to go through it. So I just love the layers that are of his hero's journey.
I like the story of how the book came to be published. I wouldn't say the book is one of my favorite personal development, or maybe I just like don't get it. Like some people are like, oh, this is the book that changed my life. I didn't get that from it, but I liked it. But I'm not like obsessed with The Alchemist like many people.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm more obsessed with Atomic Habits than I am with The Alchemist,
same.
But you took it from me, and I wanted to give the listeners a bit of diversity. No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, we said it on the last episode, but we are each doing a Goodreads challenge to read 50 books this year. I think we're both in the 40s, and we're recording this in November. So we're getting there. If you want to follow us, just search our names on Goodreads. You can see all the books we've read this year. Yeah. All right, Andrew, we got just 2 minutes left. So I think it's time to do the glimmers. What is making you happy and sparkly these days?
These days, I am very excited for my son's birthday is this month. And for his birthday, we are going to Nashville this weekend to get a whole bunch of good barbecue and to go see a hockey game. And I just booked tickets for the Grand Ole Opry, which I was very surprised that he wanted to go to. But I'm like, this is kind of neat. I'm not a big country music fan, but I listen to it when it's on. So I'm really excited for this trip. I think it's going to be a great memory setting trip right now. So,
yeah,
how about you, Kat? What's your memory?
Yeah, I'm trying to influence you with my country tunes at all times, but good. I am making progress in Duolingo. I think I'm at an 80-day streak. I guess I'm a late adopter to it, but I'm really nerding out. I'm trying to learn French because Andrew is fluent, and I want to have conversations with him in public where only we know and any other French people know what we're saying. It's going to be a long road, y'all, but I have been following like Americans in France on Instagram. And I've, again, surrounding myself with like the people and the things that I'm feeding my brain with. Like I'm all in on the journey. It is bringing me joy to practice French. And I am working through perfectionist tendencies and trying to accept that I am very much a beginner at this.
Learning a new language makes you realize that, we all start at the beginning, and that's a great place to start. Well, congrats. I love that. And I love that you're learning French. C'est très bien, ça.
Oh, anyway, thanks you. Merci.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye. Hey guys, quick disclaimer. We're podcasters on the internet. If you need to seek professional help, please go see your healthcare professional.
One last thing. Don't forget to go to 5yearyou.com/future to start getting those emails from your future self. It will change your life.